Hello and welcome. If you want to see how you can get Kubernetes running on Ubuntu and how we will be able to deploy our own custom Docker image onto our Kubernetes cluster, stay tuned. For this demo, we will be using microcates and we will install microcates via Snap. If you're wondering, microcates is using and runs all Kubernetes services natively, so we do not need any kind of virtual machine setup. And doing a snap install, it also will include the entire set of libraries and binaries and all other dependencies that are needed. Everything will be included. So this will make this install fast and easy. Snap should be included on Ubuntu 18.04 LTS and forward by default. If Snap should not be present on your system, you can go ahead and install it. I will post a link over here and you can go to this link and install Snap. I also want to note that Snap is not exclusive to Ubuntu and you can install it on other Linux distributions as well. Now with that being said, let's go ahead and get the install going. And in order to install microcates, we simply execute a sudo snap install microcates -- classic. So we'll define here that we want a classic version. If there's other versions that you would like to install or specific versions, you can just head on over to microcates and Google up microcates and you will be guided to the web page and you can see the command to install a specific version. However, that's all what we want. We'll just hit enter and we will start the install. The install may take a couple of minutes depending on your network connection. In my case, I'm running on VirtualBox, so I will pause here and I will be back once the install has completed. Now that microcates is installed, I want to note that during the installation there was a group created called microcates. Right now, if we leave everything as it is, in order to execute any microcates commands, we would need to prefix them with sudo as they need to be executed as root. So let's change that first before we continue on and add ourselves, or if you want to, any other user to that group. In Ubuntu, what you would do is you would just run a user mod -lowercase a uppercase g, give it the group name. Again, it's microcates. And then you would give it the username. In my case, I want to add myself, so I will go ahead and just use the environment variable. I need to prefix this with sudo, which I did not pay attention. Okay, so now I added myself to this group. Please note too that once this has been done, ask the user, or in this case myself, I should log out and log back in order for these changes to take effect. I will go ahead and do that and I will be right back. Here I am back on my command line. I have rebooted my machine. So to test if this works now, we can simply run a microcates status and we would not need to prefix it with sudo, and I should be able to execute this. And let's take a look, and here it is. Just to explain real quick, so what we see here is just the current status of microcates running on our Ubuntu machine. We do not have it set to high availability. The only add-on that currently is enabled is an HA cluster, which is the main cluster. And then there is other add-ons that we can enable and disable if we would like at any given time. So to give you an example, how we can enable some of these things. So I would like to enable the dashboard, DNS, and let's say storage. I can simply run now a microcates enable, and then I can tell it DNS, dashboard, and I said storage, for example. And I can hit enter. If I can type microcates, that would be much better. So microcates enable, and we'll run this command, and then it will enable all these different add-ons. You may need to add your password. But if that finishes, I will be back, as I will pause it right now. This can take a minute or two. Here we are, and all our add-ons have been enabled. If you wanted to disable them, the command simply would be microcates disable and then give it the add-on name. So let's take a look at our cluster. Let's see what actually is running and what we have available. To do that, we would need to execute a kubectl command. In our case, we need to prefix it with microcates, seeing that we're using that. So we do a microcates kubectl get all, and then a -- all namespaces. That's what we want to get, and let's run this command, and here we go. So here we see our services. We do see our pods. We see that what is up and what is not up yet. So you see some of these are not ready yet. We can see here if there's anything broken, but we see here, for example, for the dashboard, it's still creating the container. So things are still being set up. This may take a little bit when you add add-ons. So let's give it a little bit and then we'll check again. So here I just waited about a minute or so, and we can see now that our containers have been created and everything is ready and good to go and good to run. This is perfect. This is very exciting. We do have right now a working Kubernetes cluster on our Ubuntu machine. So now let's take a look how we can go ahead and actually deploy a custom Docker image to our Kubernetes cluster. Before deploying our custom image, let's take a look at what I actually have created here. Let me clear my screen and let me move into the correct directory. It's under TDC demos. Now, obviously for you, it might be in a different place. Okay, here we are. And let me pull it up in Visual Studio Code. And we'll take a look at the script that I have here and what kind of service we'll actually be deploying. So my service is a very simple and straightforward Flask application. I'm running just Flask and Flask RESTful. I have two endpoints. One will be on the root and one will be routed to info2. So nothing fancy here. Typical Flask application that I want to containerize. And then for my Docker file, it's a very straightforward and simple Docker file. I'm using Alpine latest. I am running my update. I'm running my dependency installs, my pip installs. I am creating an application directory, and then I am moving my script over, and then I'm running the command to execute my app.py script to run my Flask server. Great, so this is the Docker container that I'll be using in this demo. I will close this and we're back here. So first things first, we need to build our container. So let's go ahead and do this, and we just do a Docker build. And then we want to tell it we're here, and we will build the container as, let's call it Kubernetes demo. We'll make this version 1.0. Okay, we'll go ahead and do this. Here's our Kubernetes demo. Let's check that it built. Running a Docker images, and here's my Kubernetes demo. Fantastic, we're good to go. Now granted, I've built it before, so this is why this might be a little bit off. I didn't make any changes, but for the sake of this demo, I recreated it with a new name. If you do not have Docker installed on your system yet, I will post a link up here, and you can go ahead to this link and watch one of my previous videos how you can install Docker on Ubuntu. Now, microcates does not know anything about the images that we have on our local machine. So in order to get our image into microcates, we will need to go ahead and create a tar file. So we need to save our image to a file. To do that, we can simply run a Docker save. Then we'll give it the Docker image name, in this case Kubernetes demo version 1.0, and we want to pipe that into Kubernetes demo.tar. Now you can name this file whatever you'd like. I just like to, for consistency's sake, stay with this name, and it would make sense that you give it the name of your image. So let's hit enter. And this did not work. I cannot type today. Kubernetes demo. Okay, let's do this. And it may take a second. Once it's done, we can run an ls and see here is my Kubernetes demo.tar. So what went wrong, for those who didn't catch it, what went wrong is I had a typo in the image name, couldn't find the referenced image to save, so that's why it threw this error. So with that being said, now we have our tar file, and now we can actually import this tar file into microK8s. So before we get started, let's clear the screen again. And now what we need to run in order to import this tar file into microK8s, we want to run a microK8s ctr image import, and then we want to give it the name, which was Kubernetes demo.tar. And we hit enter, and now microK8s should go ahead and import this tar file into microK8s. And now if we want to see if this was really happening, we can run a command, meaning we want to check that it actually really imported the image. We can run a microK8s ctr images ls, and we just pipe to grep, and I want to have Kubernetes, for example, displayed. Now granted, there are a few other ones that have Kubernetes in their name, but here is our image, and it is now available in the repository in the image repo for microK8s. So now we can go ahead and we can actually create our deployment, and we can also create our service, and then we should be able to access our application that we deploy on Kubernetes. Let's go ahead and create our deployment that we need to run in order to deploy our Docker image. So this would be a microK8s, and then this is a kubectl command. So we need to microK8s kubectl create deployment, and now we give the deployment a name. I will call it Kubernetes demo, which is perfectly fine. And then we need to give it the image name, image, and this is our Kubernetes. This is not how you write Kubernetes. Kubernetes demo version 1.0. So we're creating our deployment. And again, I have a typo problem today. I apologize. It is a microK8s. So here we create our deployment, and we see our deployment has been created. Now, if you want to, for example, scale your deployment, meaning how many replicas do you want to run at any given time, just for demo purposes, I will go ahead and scale it to 2. So now I want to type the command microK8s, which again, this is a kubectl command, kubectl scale, and then I need to give it my deployment name. So I would need to say right now scale deployment, and then this is Kubernetes demo, and then I will tell it replicas equals 2, 3, whatever you want. In our case, for this demo, I'll leave it at 2, and we'll go ahead and do that. So hit enter, and now I have also my deployment scaled. So now I have a deployment created. I have the deployment scaled. And now we can go ahead and we can actually expose our service. We can expose that, or the deployment, we can expose that and as a service, and then we will be able to access that. Before we do this, we can real quick check again to make sure that everything is in place that we need to have, and to maybe see if our deployment really is available. So to do that, we can run the same command that we ran before, and we'll just run a micro-k8s and another kubectl command, and we'll just say get all, and then we'll just say all namespaces. And if I hit that, if we hit that, we can see here, so we have our Kubernetes demo, we have this here, we have our deployment, and then we do have here, I'm sorry, here's our deployment, here's the pods, here's our deployment. So we have 2 pods running. We do have one deployment here. And then here's our replica sets. So now what we need to do is we need to create a service, and the service then will allow us to actually access the web API, the REST API. So to expose our service, we will need to run the following command. Let me go ahead and clear my screen. And the command that we need to run is another kubectl command, and we'll run a micro-k8s kubectl expose deployment. Now granted, I don't know if somebody caught it, but I do yet again made another typo in my name. So I caught that earlier, and this is actually the correct spelling of my deployment name. We need to give it a type, and the type will be a node port. We will need to give it the port. Now the port you want to give it here is actually the port your container is exposing on. So in our case, Flask runs by default on port 5000. I have not changed that, so in this case I need to give it port 5000, and then we need to give our service a name, and the name that we'll give it is just simply Kubernetes demo dash service. And that's all we need, and we can hit enter, and now it actually exposed our service. So what we need to do now is now we need to find out, well, what port does my service actually run on? So micro-k8s is randomly assigning a port to our exposed service. So how do we find that? I will show you next. And the way that we will go ahead and find our port is just simply by running micro-k8s kubectl get all, and then we just do a dash all namespaces. We will run this, and now we'll see here that our service has been created, and we see here too that it is exposed on port 31719. So this is the port that we need to go to, seeing that we are running this on our local machine. So we would just connect to localhost port 31719 to see actually our service in action. So I will go into Firefox here. That's what I have installed on my VM. And once that opened, we will be able to go ahead. This was not what I wanted, because it was from a previous demo that I did. And I wanted a new tab. So here we'll just go to 127.0.0.1, and we will go to port 31719. And if all went well, we should get a message back, and look at this. Here we have our important information message, which is the message that's returned at the root of my Flask application. And let's put in here info2 and hit enter, and there's an even more important information message returned to us. So this shows that our service is working, that we have now successfully deployed a custom Docker container onto our Kubernetes cluster, and we are running it directly on Ubuntu. This is really awesome. This is really great if you want to learn more about Kubernetes. All the kubectl commands are available, and you can go ahead and play around with it and continue or start your learning journey with Kubernetes. To finish this demo off and round it up, let's go ahead and see how we can actually access the dashboard that I was speaking of before, or that we enabled in our add-ons. So in the dashboard, you will be able to see everything in a nice graphical way, what kind of pods are running, what services you have, and so forth. So it's coming in really helpful. Before we can access it, however, we need to retrieve the token. I've copied the command over. I'll go through it real quick. So we get the token. We'll just execute a microK8s kubectl. In the kube system namespace, we get a secret. We then pipe it to grep into to get the default token, and then we'll just cut it so that we can go ahead and can have it returned to us. And then we'll have a describe running to have the secret displayed. So if I run this, you will see here is my token that I will need in order to access the dashboard. Number one. Number two, how do I find actually the endpoint to access my dashboard? In order to do that, we need to again run a microK8s, another kubectl command again, kubectl get all, and then we do all namespaces again. If we run this, we will see here that our dashboard service is running on this cluster IP and on port 443. So let's go ahead and head on over there. So let's copy this IP address. And remember 443, and we get back over here, and we'll just paste the IP address in here and append port 443. And once hit enter, we should prefix it with an HTTPS. Okay, so, and then we can just go ahead, advanced, accept the risk, and we will be presented with this login screen. And this is where we'll need the token for. So in order to log into our dashboard, we need to give it the token, or you can do kubeconfig. For this demo, we'll just stick with the token. And I will go back into my command line, and I'm copying the token value only, not the name token, not what's at the end here, just the token value. Let's go ahead and copy that. If I'm going back, I click into enter token. I will paste it in here and say sign in. I wouldn't save it because it may change, so we just say don't save. And here we go. So now we actually see our workloads. We see our CPU usage, our memory usage. We see the workload status. Everything is green, so everything is working. Here is our deployment of Kubernetes demo. We see how long ago it was created, what the image is. We see the pods that are running. We had a replica set of 2 for our Kubernetes demo. As you see here, 2 out of 2 are running. Here are the 2 pods that are running for our Kubernetes demo. And then we have our config storage and our secrets here. So this is how you can access your dashboard for your Kubernetes cluster microK8s that you're running on your Ubuntu instance. And this might be more helpful possibly than using everything on the command line if you don't feel comfortable with the command line. Well, this concludes the demo of installing Kubernetes and getting started with Kubernetes on Ubuntu. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.